Participate in a conversation with once conservative, now liberal Midwest mastered prepared special education high school teacher and a self-proclaimed devil's advocate, East Coast conservative liberal, baccalaureate prepared registered nurse. These two strangers met, became instant friends, and realized their conversations are candid and epic. So join us weekly, ask us questions, and listen to these profoundly candid friends try to solve the world's problems, one discussion at a time.
Hey, welcome to another episode of The New Theory with Monet and Jared, aka TNT with MJ. I am Jared.
I'm Monet.
And together we are teaching minds
and nurturing souls.
And if you would, for our regular listeners, if you caught that I did not say exciting episode, it's really simply because the theme for this, we're all kind of a little somber.
Look at Chris.
But at the same time, we are very happy to have a return guest, a friend of the show. If you remember our friend in Virginia, the caseworker at Section 8 HUD housing, Christi Savla. Welcome back. It's been a while, so if you would catch us up since last we talked.
Well, I am fully vaccinated from COVID.
Yay.
So that is probably my biggest news.
Right on.
Just watching as little news as possible. There's a lot of violence and anger and hate.
Negativity.
And I have had my fill, and I've needed to basically shut myself off from it for a while. We've got the George Floyd case going on.
Yeah.
And that has been difficult to read about. And I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready for work about mandatory mental health care in police officers.
And everybody right now, the medical field, teachers, parents that's got kids at home. Hell yeah, everybody needs real sincere psychiatric assistance.
Yes. And anybody who works in the social field, and teachers and anybody, and it's not offered. I think our insurance plan offers 6 sessions a year, which I think is pretty decent.
Yeah,
that's pretty good, but it should be more.
Yeah,
it should be. It should
at least
be.
once
And
a month.
I'm just and
that's
I'm
once
just
a month
working,
for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just working with housing. And I've one of my old coworkers. She worked at DHS, and she worked some really hardcore child abuse cases, and she didn't really get any. But we talk about defunding the police, and and I was thinking about that this morning, and how many of these shootings and how many of these issues would stop if there was a psychiatrist or somebody on hand that not only the police could talk to, but somebody that could accompany the police.
Period.
Yes. And Jared, I don't know if you remember, but 15, 20 years ago there was a shooting somewhere between Springdale and Rogers, and the kid, I think he was 19 at the time. I think he was autistic, and he had gotten out of his house. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And unfortunately, the police were also looking for somebody who had escaped from jail or somebody who was suspected of murder. And they had the same build, essentially. And the kid was walking along the median, and few phone calls to the police. There's this kid, he's acting weird. He's pacing back and forth on the freeway, don't know what's going on. Whole bunch of police show up, put your hands up. get on the ground. The kid freaks out and they shoot him, and he died. And
I can't talk about this. I'm having like distress. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how much can you take?
Yeah. Well, and this was 15, 20 years ago. And how many cases have there been since then?
I mean, the whole morose, the whole solemn feeling that we're feeling now is not just for the loss of a human's life based. It's by the hands of it's by the hands of the police.
Say it. Yeah.
But it's because we have a feeling he's going to get off.
Yeah.
And we feel like all of this, the media, for nothing.
Yeah.
All of the protests, all of the fighting and the comments and the trying to educate everybody around us. You know, it's not about, you know, these lives matter more than other lives. It's these lives haven't mattered enough. And we're just trying to get them to our level. You know,
it's so hard.
Yeah. Instead of, you know, Rittenhouse, you know, here, you just killed 2 people, here, have some water, you know, sit down and, you know, let's, you know, give you a bail and let you hang out with your family while you're waiting trial. You know, let's give everybody that chance. And, you know, Floyd, he passed a counterfeit $20 bill. And he was suspected of being high on drugs, and he was brutally murdered. And, you know, somebody experienced with drug addiction, how much could that person could have helped, would have helped?
For what
bystanders were like, go ahead. Sorry.
No, for what it's worth, unlike you guys, I have been watching the case. I have been following it.
Yes, you have.
A lot of really compelling testimony from eyewitnesses, but the clerk that interacted with Floyd, that took that counterfeit 20, testified that he actually regretted his actions. And that if he had just said, I think the question was,
take your money back. No, you can't.
What do you normally, is that your normal policy or something to that effect? Yeah. And his response was, I regret, it's something to the effect of, he got to the point of saying, I regret calling the cops. I wish I would just called him back over and said, hey, do you have another form of payment? Because I think this is counterfeit. And I just want to make sure everything's on the up and up, you know, that type of thing. So had he handled it that way, that wouldn't have happened. And so this man would still be alive. And that was, so, but that's one hell of a cross to bear. You know what I'm saying?
You literally participated in the death.
Chauvin and Floyd already had history. Floyd knew who Chauvin was. You know, there's there's video that you hear him saying, "Don't leave me alone. Don't leave me alone with him."
To the other cops.
Yes. Chauvin wasn't even the first one on the scene. He showed up second. Have taken lead. Thank you.
Chauvin
and we go back to the. No, go ahead.
And say Chauvin had several other complaints of.
He's had racism. 17 complaints
of police brutality.
17 complaints within the last 20 years. 4. He's already killed 4. He killed 4 other people before Floyd. Tao was with him every step of the way.
I don't even know how to complain on a cop. So I mean, that's a level of frustration to go through the channels and complete the paperwork that I'm like, I've been angry with the cops for giving me a speeding ticket or whatever, but not really angry, because if I was doing wrong, I did wrong. But
Right.
Yeah.
no.
But there were 17 people who did go through the process of filing a
Yeah.
complaint. How many people didn't?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
right.
and if you know that, so unfortunately this exposes, but this is going to be like America. I want to talk to the people that are like, well, maybe he should just do, like, if he was a decent human being, he would attest to the fact that he contributed to this man's death, and he would say, I'm guilty. Let me serve my time and move on with my life. You're going to take us all through this bullshit. He has the right to say, Your Honor, I want to stop the proceedings. I'm guilty. Can we please stop? No, you're going to parade all these people in so they can tell their horrific viewpoints for this horrific homicide, and you're still going to act like you didn't do nothing wrong? Look, this America, this is what you fucking produced. This is what you fucking created. You created this fucking asshole. Are you proud of this? Is this great? This is not great. This is abysmal. You're disgusting. This shouldn't even be a trial. Chris, that's why we haven't watched it. No, Jared, you're getting information. And I love that you're there every step of the way so you can say, you know what? Nope, this is exactly what happened. This is what was said. But for the rest of us, for those that have consciousness, for those of that are like, this isn't right. You're horrible. If I did that, if I, as a human being, put my knee on somebody's neck and they died, guess what? I'm guilty. I'm done. I have evolved to the point where I can attest to my mistakes. And I'm sad because the level of frustration in this country over blatant disrespect and bias for each other. Look, Asian hate.
Chris, you had something specific you wanted to address tonight, right? Switching topics. I'm trying to lighten the mood for Monet here. I feel where she's at. So, yeah.
Yeah, your background.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I never thought I would see that behind you.
Was it 10 or like 12 years?
5.
That's really kind of fair. A little bit.
Oh, shit. I'm pulling out the proverbial popcorn.
15.
What? So what?
I might have had something a little bit different in the background, but maybe something that still, I don't know. Spoke to humanity.
What are you guys talking about?
Well, there's some of the things that you and I have already talked about.
I know, Jared.
Yeah, my response to Eric Gardner, my response to, there was another one, and for the in Ferguson, or was that no, that wasn't Garner.
What do you mean response, Jared?
Obviously, completely opposite of my background. My literal background.
Chris, what do you know, pray tell?
Well, he was more of a all lives matter kind of person, and and not.
Is there anything specific that you can recall from? For those that don't know, I don't think we brought this up in the last episode. Chris and I we've been friends for a long time. In fact, we were once roommates, shared a house. She was gracious enough to let me live there, and ultimately be the maid to compensate for rent.
The maid. The maid.
But anyway, no, yeah, that. No, but all that to say, we go way back, and so when she's talking, she knows some shit. So, but is it, like I said, is there anything specific that you recall that
Wait. How Arkansas was he?
Shit.
I mean, there's more Arkansas people out there than him. But when I started talking about, statistics and facts and, he kind of just, whatever, and blew me off.
Can you guys recreate one of those conversations?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Yeah, no, I was quick to respond. Nuh-uh.
Probably not. No, I mean, I would talk to him about, the poverty and, some of the reasons why, minorities are sitting in prisons, and he'd be like, well, they did the crime, didn't they? And it's like, technically, yeah, but, here's, you've got these people who don't have money because, the way that society is set up and the way that, and he's like, well, maybe they shouldn't have just done the crime.
Or I do recall at one point, or at least I'm sure that I have said this along the way somewhere, that, if only he had complied. All he had to do was comply. All he had to do was just listen to what was being told. Or
I remember you saying something to the effect, if he can talk, he can breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah. I was that guy.
Tisk. Wait. So how do we? Go ahead, Chris.
And as far as the gay pride and the transgender pride, he was never, anti, and, it was never, because we've got some very dear friends that are gay. Mm-hmm. And, but I think it was kind of his religion. It's like, well, maybe they, marriage is, God and, my church and, this and this. And it's like, well, a marriage is a legally binding contract that is signed, through the state. And the Constitution says, separation of church and state. And if you don't think gay people should be married in your church, stay in your church, and that's fine. But I mean, we're not talking about church, we're talking about legal, and legally this is just a contract. And we got into that argument a couple of times, and he just
I don't care what you call it, just don't call it a marriage.
Yeah.
Call it what you want. You can call it a civil union, you can call it whatever, but marriage, in the Bible, marriage is defined as meant between a man and a woman. But I'm just gonna leave it there and let that just hang.
All right, so then I would love to,
because I'm still reckoning with that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still reckoning with that.
There's no reason. First of all, you used to shit and piss in a bag that was attached to your ass. Okay, so you can't fault yourself for what was happening at the time when you had no insight and no control. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's called you evolved.
Right.
With that being said, even though now you're more at a more cognizant state.
So here's something that really helped me along the way. It was actually a marquee sign outside of a church. And it read, love your neighbor, God will love each other, God will take care of everything else. Or God will sort it out. Something to that effect. Your job is just to love everybody else. Period. God will sort out everybody else, sort of in the end. So something to that effect. But I'm like, you know what? It's as simple as that.
Period.
So that's where I'm at. So.
Yeah.
But I want to tap into that guy that had those strong convictions.
Okay.
And I want to say, psychologically, where was he at with his own identity? Be honest. Did you feel confident, secure? What do you think, Chris?
That's a good question. I think I was dealing with a lot of depression and self-medicating a lot.
Okay. For history,
I mean, for a lot of different reasons,
Yeah, no, yeah. History has a way of creeping up in adulthood, and just kind of, or young or late adolescence and early.
But bear in mind, I'm trying to recall like 10 to 20 years ago, or
True.
15 to 20 years ago, because I've been married to Cedar for 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but even then,
even 5-6 years into the marriage, it was like,
yeah.
My mentality is, and so, how did you feel? Do you feel the Jared we're speaking to today, and the Jared 5-6 years ago? How did you feel about your place in society?
A lot of uncertainty
back then.
Because bear in mind, and I say that in respect of, like you said, identity. I, of course, married, 2 kids, so I'm doing the husband father thing. Felt like I had a good handle on that, yeah, we all make mistakes, and I'm still working on that. But in respect to career, education, where I was and where I felt I should be, and so there, yeah. And again, bear in mind that I was still doing college. I was still doing my master's. Well, 5-6 years ago, I was still working on my bachelor's. So, and then had 2 master's degrees attached to that. So quite a bit of schooling. But all that to say, that's where I was at, just struggling in that regard. So.
All right. So then 15-20 years ago, how did you feel about your place in this country?
I didn't care.
You didn't recognize, like,
no, it was I was just in my mid to early 20s at that point. I didn't care.
So like,
I'm 4, so 20 years. Yeah, I had that right.
Your little bit of interaction with social justice was absolutely, like, even with white people, white on white crime, so to speak. It's called crime, by the way. Anyway,
right.
Did you feel like did you feel a certain discomfort around groups of people?
Yes.
Did you feel
like? Because I felt like I was in. Because I felt if I feel like where you're going with this, let me jump ahead and say yes. I felt a whole lot more comfortable and safe around people who look like me.
Okay.
That is other white folks. Because I still don't think this is white. I'm just saying, peach.
Peach. Right. What were you, Chris?
But I was always tense around crowds anyway, But that's not excuse. But I was more tense and more stressed when there were people of color around in those crowds.
So that's a given. I mean, if you take any child, no matter what race it depends on their exposure to, certain groups. Like if, my kids have been exposed to everything. So it's just like, I don't care. People, like, especially when they're young. But, I think what I'm trying to analyze, what I'm trying to get to the base of is like, there was something that switched in you that turned you into the person that you are today. But we can respect and appreciate and love the person that you are today. Also the person back then, because obviously he had the same qualities, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he was a complete ass, I wouldn't be friends with him.
Exactly. I can tell.
That's what I was. I mean... but I called him out a lot.
Yes,
I called him out a lot. And, and I, we kind of come from, the same small town America, the same small, white town America. And, so I understood a little bit kind of where he came from. But somewhere along the line, I guess I had some different experiences and different education. And I just didn't really care who I was around or, who I was friends with. And, as I said the last time, I just had some education and, learning and research. And I
Can we
learned early
wait?
on that just things were not right in this country.
Yeah. I just want to backtrack now. I mean, because Jared, we can always just dig in your ass. But Chris, what happened with you? You were raised in the same environment. What was it that, okay, so do you really think it was at home? Like your parents was just like, everybody's everybody and it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, not saying my parents were definitely not racist by any means. Mm-hmm. My mom, she was an old hippie. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, very, very much into civil rights.
What?
Yeah, my grandparents, my grandfather was he campaigned for some of the senators and was civil rights. He was a big union guy. And my grandmother, she women's rights. And my great grandparents were immigrants.
From where?
One from Hungary, one from Czechoslovakia. Yeah, and then on my dad's side, my dad's parents, I didn't really know his family, but from really, I'm pretty sure they were a little bit more on the racist. You maybe
and maybe
don't
your
want
dad got away from. Maybe your dad was like, I gotta get away from that.
To some extent, my dad was in. He grew up in Delaware.
Oh, he's Yankee.
Yeah, and he was bused. And, he was like, I didn't care. I didn't care who I went to school with. I didn't care who I sat next to. I just wanted to go to school. I wanted to play with my friends. I wanted to go to school. I didn't care. I didn't care who my friends were. And, so that's kind of, my parents. But, whenever I was in school, whenever I was growing up, very white town, and I had befriended the only Black girl in school. She was only there for a year, and wonder why she moved to a bigger city. I was 7 or 8, but I don't remember her having any other friends at school besides me, and she was made fun of and she was picked on. And I had slumber parties at her house, and she came over to my house and we rode bikes together after school. And
well, Chris, that's just different.
I know, right? I mean, the same stuff that you do with any of your other friends. And she was awesome. And one day she was like, we've got to move. And that was it. And I think about her often. 30 some odd years later, I still think about her because she was awesome.
You were friends. You were legitimately friends.
Yeah.
And Jared, do you think the essence, some of it comes from the fact that there's an undercurrent of racism in your family? I don't know how else to say it but to be so. I said undercurrent.
In a matter of speaking, yes. Yes. But I would also attribute them. I would also attribute a lot of it to just simply ignorance. With conversations with a couple of my family members, it's they're just saying, if only I knew then what I know now, that type of thing. And just, I'm still trying to catch up from, this individual is 60 plus years old, but 50 years, making up for all that lost time of what could have been because of the bubble that they lived in, and not having that exposure, not having those experiences, and just simply not knowing any better. But it doesn't also help the fact that the culture of the time, the television shows, the movies, the commercials, the print, do you see a lot of diversity at the time back then? It's only within this last 6 months that you're finally starting to see, diversity within the commercials and having, commercials start, having only Black folks,
it's been longer, but
it's also,
you think it's more prominent.
Well, then in that case, we can argue targeted audiences.
Well, of course. Well, because we're still we're still dealing with a mindset that, we're still doing them and those and us versus them, I think. You can't help it until we evolve into a society. I would love to get to the utopia where color doesn't matter. It is all based on your actions. And I think more of us are morphing to that. I'm just judging you based on your actions. And I think you're a pretty cool person. And I like you. I don't care what your hair looks like. You got braids or you're bald or, you know what I'm saying? It's cut short or it's purple or it's pink. Who cares? Are you a good person? Thank God you're a good person. Because that's all I need. At the end of the day, it would have taken a good person to come out of that, whatever the fuck establishment was, and scare that man from hitting that woman from the first kick if they saw it instead of closing the fucking door. I would have preferred someone go, ah! I would have straight. Everybody's like, he's big. And I'm pretty sure I can run faster than him. So even my big ass. And guess what? It should have been all and people we're not going to do that. Sorry. But because that's me. I'm getting in your face. No, I ain't scared because let me tell you something. A confident person is one of the scariest motherfuckers on the planet. If you're confident against somebody that's crazy, they are like, I can't deal with that. And this is coming from a psych nurse. You got to be confident. They're like, how do? You got to be confident. Just know I'm done. Now, size, I am big. So I do use that to my advantage. But, and there's a lot of other things, you know what I'm saying? She got a little je ne sais quoi. But
yeah.
My point is, no, I don't know how the turnout would have been, but I would have done something. And that's the next thing we have to start doing. Speak out when things are wrong and start doing when people aren't. I mean, we don't know what the outcome is, but if you really believe in God and you trust in God, I'm just saying, yes, I'm going to go to the doctor. And no, I'm not going to, if somebody's got a gun, do the best you can. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we got to do something.
Yeah.
We do.
I mean, I said I not many people know, but I will share this very quickly. I had an Asian stepmother. She was Korean and Chinese. Yeah. Between the ages of 8. No.
All right.
Between the ages of 8 and 12. Her name was Kyung Corrigan. And she was my Oma. She would say things like, Hachima, like, what are you doing? Because I was a precocious little girl. Anyway,
do tell.
I'm bringing out the $20. I'm bringing out the $20 words today. I know, right? How the fuck?
Really? No, I couldn't.
My dad.
Surely not. Not you.
Howard Washington was a very interesting man. Okay, which created a very interesting young woman. All right, this woman lived in a all-black suburban community. Okay. And everybody was like, "You're Chinese, Mom." She was not Chinese. She was Korean. And this woman taught me what it is to date your children, because Saturday mornings was our date time. Mm-hmm. She would get me up in the morning. We would get dressed. We would have breakfast. and we would go out and run errands, food shopping, laundry. I mean, going to the dry cleaners and things like that. Whatever errand we had to run, going to the DMV, it was just her and I. And it was our time. And we would always either end it with ice cream or some fruit in the park, definitely a walk of some sort, whether it was through a mall or I'm sorry. When I got pregnant with my oldest, I've been looking for this woman. I don't know if she's alive or dead. And it just resonates with how her gentle, calm disposition is. This woman would work 40 hours a week and there was still a hot dinner, okay, on the table every night. No, I've been eating kimchi and bulgogi and you name other Korean dishes that I still don't know the name to. This is a little girl. And that softness, that love between two people, I don't want to say it's because she's Asian, but I had an Asian mother that was very strong influence in my life. And to see things happen, I do not agree with it. And yes, there's a lot of people. I had a Korean stepmother. I had an Iranian stepmother. Yeah, I had a very interesting life. I can't make this shit up. And I would kill somebody if they would hurt her or anyone. Then nobody should get hurt like that.
Yeah.
And to have an intimate relationship with a community that people don't know too much about. She didn't boast about how good of a mother she was. She just was. She was. She didn't understand this hair. She tried her best. And for my 12th birthday, I got a curling iron because she understood that's how you work it. She worked it. She studied it. She at first, because when it's wet, it gets really curly and soft. So she figured if I put Dippity Doo in it, it'll make it straight. And Dippity Doo is an old school gel. I mean, it's like a level of glue. And she used to put it in my hair because she wanted me to be prim and clean and nice looking. So, yeah, this community has love. Like, there's a lot of love in this community. All of our communities, for real, for real.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's real.
Mm.
Well, you say about dating our children and your Saturday mornings with your stepmom. I take my son out every Saturday. We have our breakfast place, and there's now that the weather is starting to warm up after breakfast, there's the park and the store, and then we come home and whatever it is that we need to do here at the house. But that's what we've been doing, since we moved here in June. Is we have our one Saturday morning breakfast place, and we go and we share pancakes and eggs and every Saturday, and
That's
very
awesome.
rarely do we miss.
I mean, it's something that I didn't know what was happening until I became an adult.
Yeah.
It was like she would pick my clothes out. Like it was out, but it was like I would hear things like, it's our time. Come on. Simple. Our time. She always had my back. There was nothing I could do wrong. That's why I'm kind of fucked up, spoiled. I'm just saying. This woman said to me, doesn't your dad like black women? Talking to a black woman. You hear me? Okay. I'm like, the fuck does that mean? Like, my ignorant ass neighbor's moms. She was always in everybody's business. And she's saying this to a fucking kid. Dumbass. I don't know.
Wow.
But
wow.
Yeah. And they didn't know, but they knew, like this, that was just Monet. You get used to it, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a little Asian lady that lives in that house over there. Yeah. And if I could find her, my soul is telling me she's not on this planet anymore, but she had 2 daughters. I always wanted to tell her, like I was having my first child, and I always wanted to tell her, like, and I subsequently wanted, with each kid, like, look what I'm, and this is what you did. I want to show you what you did for me. I mean, I love my mother. I would never want to trade her in or change her, but I had love. I had a lot of love. So that's where loving other people comes into play, I think. But yeah, so no more Asian hate, please. There's some of us out here that really love them.
And on that note, I hate to do this, but it is that time.
Yes, it is. Sorry, Chris.
So we're gonna have to call it good for the night. We thank you guys for joining the conversation. Chris, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope we can have you back. Another 6 months or so? Yeah.
Because there's more.
Awesome.
You're calm. Well, we got to question you more about your upbringing. I think it's beautifully. And then your current, choices in life are just even more.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Join us again next week for another exciting episode of TNT with MJ. Monet, I'm going to throw it to you for final word.
Well, we're just saying we're going to all pray for healing for this nation, because the somber mood is not just what's in this, Zoom right now. It's everywhere. The fear, the discomfort, and we're going to pray for an awakening. We're going to pray for continued love and tolerance with one another, and hope that there's always going to be a better tomorrow.
Amen.
And with that being said, love you. Bye!